Hi everyone, this is Surina, you're watching Now It's So Vivid, and today's video is going to be my very first ever deliberate tag. The last time I tried a tag, it was just sort of like a throwaway mention at the end of a video. You're welcome to participate in that discussion too, hint hint, hashtag music, there will be a link in the description. However, this one I went into with a little bit more planning. It's something I really wanted to inspire a discussion about, so I'm going to list off my top 4 things that I think I do differently in my practice. Before I begin, I would like to preface this video by saying that in no way do I intend to isolate anyone, I suppose, with this video. I'm not trying to be that hipster edgelord that's like, I did it before anyone else did it kind of thing. Like, I don't care about that. And I certainly don't expect everyone to do the things that I do, so if any of these ideas directly contradict with the way that you personally view either the divine or the practices that you incorporate into your magic, that's okay. I'm not judging you for that. I respect everybody's choice to pursue the spiritual the way that they want to. However, I have occasionally just felt kind of like, maybe I need to say something because there are things that I do in my practice that I don't see anybody else doing just like me. And I would like to think that maybe by throwing these topics into the discussion pool that I could inspire someone. But also I just realized that this community of people, YouTube pagans in particular, is getting bigger by the day. And I certainly don't know all of the YouTube pagans that are out there. So this is a way for me to reach out. And if you have anything to add to any of the topics in this video, feel free. And if you want to do a video response to this tag, which I highly encourage, you can do so. I only rounded it down to 4 just because that's the number I came up with. If you have more or less than that, go for it. I'm happy to look at whatever you got. So here we go. The top 4 things I think I do differently than anyone else in my magical practice. Number 1, my thoughts on patron and matron deities. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin with this one. I said I planned, but I kind of lied. I have been hung up for the past couple years on a thought surrounding patron/matron deities, and I wonder what you guys think about this. For the past, I don't know, 16 months or so, I've been working with a particular deity. I don't consider him my patron. I have a very deep, very close spiritual connection to this deity, and I in no way intend to stop working with him at any time, but I still don't consider him my patron. And I had to kind of check with myself to see why the word patron was hanging me up. And this is kind of what I came up with. The etymology of the word patron it comes from the Latin root word for father, which I feel like is one of the reasons why people incorporated the word matron into this idea, because, you know, obviously if you're concerned with feminine spirituality or with goddesses in particular, you would most likely associate them with a mother figure. But I realized over time that maybe I was getting kind of hung up on the semantics of using those terms, and it ultimately occurred to me that my relationship with Morpheus is not in any way analogous. Analogous? Am I saying that right? There is no analogy, there is no parallel between my relationship with Morpheus and a parent-child relationship. There is a divine figure and devotee relationship for sure, and you could say that he is kind of like an authority in that way, but I've always felt that, especially with my work with this one particular god, that there's a kinship there that I feel like using any term that is associated with parentage isn't quite accurate. And I realize that it's all, like I said, a matter of semantics. There's something kind of like still wibbly about all of all of these words and what they're intended to mean. Because if you think about it, outside of the context of gods and devotees, we use the term patron a lot, in English anyway, in ways that aren't associated with parenthood. And, you know, that's kind of where the term patron actually came from in terms of these gods. So, for example, we say this guy patronizes this place of business, this bar, this restaurant, whatever. It's because he is offering something to that business. His time, his money, you know, the economy associated with it. Like, it's very much the same kind of relationship that devotees of gods have. We offer them our time and our energy and our love. So patron, as far as deities go, has a lot to do with them being the stewards of something. Athena was the steward goddess of Athens, Greece. She was the protector and the steward of that place and inspired their culture. So for that reason, I guess you could say that Morpheus is my patron. But I also challenge the idea sometimes of only having one. Like, despite the linguistics argument, I kind of feel like it's extremely limiting for me to say that this is my patron with a capital P, and he's the only person, the only god, the only spiritual entity that will ever have influence, major influence over my life. I'd like to leave myself open to more possibilities than that. And just because of the relationship that I personally have with Morpheus, I don't believe that he would have a problem with that. So for me, I've had a lot of clarity, especially in the recent past, about my feelings toward the use of patron, and that is why I don't use that word. I don't mind it if somebody calls Morpheus my patron, honestly. I'm not here to argue. If that is what makes most sense to you, then that's fine. But for me, I think it has a lot to do with my relationship to the possibility of building practices and devotions around other deities in the future and not putting myself unnecessarily into a spiritual box. So that's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on the uses of the terms patron and matron deities. Number 2, my associations with light and dark magic, aka white and black magic. There could be an entire video's worth of conversation, I suppose, on the moral implications of using the terms white, black, light, dark. For me, none of them have anything to do with how I feel about light and dark magic. The way that I incorporate light and dark magic, or the definitions of those terms, into my life has a lot to do with my pre-teen to early teen years when I was really big into video games, and in particular to Japanese role-playing games. I was a big Final Fantasy nerd. I say was, like it's in the past, but I am still a big Final Fantasy nerd, and most of the time I associate light and dark in terms of magical spell work and stuff like that as it would be associated in a Final Fantasy game. In a Final Fantasy game, white magic is protective magic. It has a lot to do with being defensive against other people's attacks, kind of thing, whereas dark magic has a lot to do with action, being proactive. You know, elemental spells are big in Final Fantasy, so you cast a spell of an element that would defeat your enemy, kind of thing. But there is no moral implications in these video games because obviously you're following the storyline of the protagonist, and you know, they're the good guys. So for me, there's no ethics involved whatsoever in my use of the terms light and dark magic. Usually when I think of light magic, I'm thinking about protection spells or prayer altogether, and the creation of sacred space and the crafting of a circle. Those are all white magic actions in my mind. And then dark magic would have to be things like bindings and you know, love spells and anything that's actually like trying to force change in the universe. And it is completely regardless of its connotations to good versus evil. So it has a lot to do with my relationship to Final Fantasy, which is just how I roll. Number 3, the way that I cast my circle. I cast my circle in quite a bit of a different way than I typically see in group rituals or as exhibited from other people's videos or written in like sort of beginner witches books. The way that I cast my circle has a lot to do with momentum, and I feel like this video is turning into a Final Fantasy X tribute video because it is greatly inspired by the female lead protagonist in that game, Yuna, and the role that she plays as the sender of the souls to the afterlife. She does this by doing a dance with her rod, the big wand that she uses. It's like a full-size staff, and I have incorporated that motion into how I cast my circle. I hope everybody can see me okay. This is my wand Dextra. She is a half staff, and this is how I cast my circle. So the logic behind this has to do with momentum. It's something that I've been incorporating a lot into my practice recently. The idea that physical motion and physical momentum will actually stir up spiritual energy, which is exactly why I have been incorporating fidget spinners into my practice. It's not just because it gives me a laugh, it's also because I think that actually stirring up the air in the room physically will inspire in some way a spiritual stir up of energy, and it has been working to great effect for me. But also, even just from the beginning, I have found that just in terms of like my solitary work, that I prefer to streamline things as much as possible. So for me, it wasn't about going around the actual boundary of the circle with a wand and slowly drawing out the circle. It had more to do with me honing in an intention and almost like a bullet shooting it out all at once in order to create an effect. And it works for me because I don't necessarily consider the circle just the small, you know, physically drawn space. By doing this motion, it's almost as if I'm sending the boundary of the circle out around me, and it can enclose this entire room so that if at any given moment during ritual I forgot an ingredient, I don't have to break the circle to go get that ingredient as long as it's within this room or within the confines of the circle that I've drawn. So I hope that makes a little sense to you guys. And finally, number 4 is that I do not cleanse or consecrate my tools or my crystals. Unless I have to. So what I'm trying to get at here is that I find it a little bit redundant sometimes to cleanse things if I don't think that they're in need of cleansing. And as a general rule, I don't cleanse my new crystals or any of the items that I bring into my magical practice unless I feel in my bone of bones that I absolutely have to in order to move on from whatever energies are, you know, not syncing well with what I'm trying to do. So, for instance, I always immediately buy my stuff and then just incorporate it into my life because the animist part of me believes that once an item has entered into my space, it becomes part of my family, and I give it a purpose. And you know, there are some issues with this because I have a tendency to be sentimental about my stuff, but you know, just like with the relationships that I have with actual people in my life, I love them as long as they're here, but when it's time for them to move on, I let them go. When it's time for them to die, I mourn for them stuff like that. But overall, I don't welcome them in with a kind of ritual. And I'm certainly not saying that there's anything wrong with doing that. It is really potent magic for a lot of people. I just don't do that. Unless I need to. I feel like there's a lot of contradiction here. However, you know, there have been the rare instance where I receive an item and I can just feel icky stuff on it. So then I will either cleanse or consecrate that thing. Like, say the item itself is physically beautiful and I want to bring it into my life, but I feel like it's repelling me in some way. A consecration ritual would actually be helpful because I believe that this thing has a soul and I want it to know that it's welcome in my space. Also, I've received items that I've either purchased or that were given to me that had a lot of like yucky memory attached to them. So in those instances, I have decided to cleanse these items. I'm thinking in particular of a bracelet and a ring. The bracelet I bought and the ring was given to me by someone that I used to know. They had negative energies sort of associated with them, so I chose to cleanse them, but as a general rule, not so much. So that's it, you guys. Thanks everybody for joining me for my top 4 things that I think I do differently. Before I sign off, I wanted to let everybody who was a winner of my 101 subscriber giveaway know that I mailed everything out this week, and I checked tracking information, and most of those things are arriving. Alvine, yours is the only one that I can't track, and I don't know why they didn't give me international tracking, so let me know when you get the book, please. I'm gonna quit goofing off now, and I'll let you guys go. But until then, everybody, sweet dreams, and I'll see you next time. Mwah.